All right, you guys. This one is a little bit heavier on the philosophy than these episodes tend to be, and you will also hear me just try to fucking sort some stuff out that's been on my mind for a while. I'm joined today by my new best friend, apparently, Tim Chachi Pachasa. And I say my new best friend, apparently, because Cordy has been giving me so much shit about how much I have talked to her about Chachi ever since he and I connected on a call in order to set up this podcast. Our brains just fucking nerded out in the most synergistic way on word use and just all of these topics that we're about to get into. So I guess I'm sorry that this isn't as cut and dry as some of the episodes of just interviewing someone about their plant medicine experiences. If you listen to our episode with a gentleman named Seb Lavoie, this is a little bit more in that vein. And actually, I'm really excited to introduce those two guys so they can just talk in circles for 6 hours. So I'm just going to leave it there. I don't want to build up any more expectations in your mind as to what this episode entails. So thank you very much for listening. Thanks to Tim for taking the time. And my one request for you as you listen to this episode is I would encourage you to go check out the HunterSeven Foundation. There will be all the links and everything in the episode description. They're doing some really amazing things in a really underserved area. There's 1,000,001 nonprofits for mental health for veterans. Everyone wants to throw money at ibogaine retreats or ayahuasca retreats. And yes, we need more of that, but also we need cancer screenings and we need treatment for veterans who've been exposed to toxic chemicals that are causing all kinds of health issues. And that's what HunterSeven Foundation focuses on. It's really an incredible mission. So as a thank you for the value that you are about to receive from this beautiful episode, I would ask you to go check out HunterSeven Foundation. At the very least, follow them on Instagram. Consider donating. They're doing really amazing things for people who really need it. So with all that said, let's get into this episode. Thank you very much for being here. All right, man. Let's get into this. So I'm super excited about this. Like I told you a minute ago, I've been fangirling about your work to my wife over the past week, talking about our conversation that we had the other day. So we'll see what happens here. But before we get into any of that stuff, I don't even know your relationship to HunterSeven. Like I don't know how you got connected with them, affiliated with them. I don't even really understand exactly what you do with them. So maybe we could start off there. Like, what is your actual role, and how did you start doing that kind of work?
Yeah, fair. I'm the executive director of HunterSeven, which is just super rad in and of itself. And so I had heard about HunterSeven years ago when I was running my career field from the military's nonprofit. And so one of our guys, Luke Page, and sadly, I think we just celebrated the 5-year anniversary of his death either yesterday or today, as it turns out, sadly. And so when I was running our nonprofit, I had heard of him and knew that HunterSeven was helping out. So I'd known about that for a while. And then just coincidentally, I ended up working at Black Rifle Coffee Company,
Okay.
a big veteran founded coffee company. And then I ended up running a lot of their or all of their philanthropy. And so we did a major play with HunterSeven. We teamed up with the UFC for UFC 300 to do a matching campaign to benefit HunterSeven. So I helped kind of connect the dots and get everyone going there. And then eventually, like 6 months later, 7 months later, when I quit Black Rifle, Chelsea, who's the former executive director, who's now the chair of the board, she had sent me an email that had gotten kicked back. So she texted me. She said, "Hey, are you no longer with Black Rifle?" I'm like, "No, I quit." She's like, "Well, welcome to HunterSeven. You're the new COO and this is happening and you have no choice and you're part of the team now and you're stuck with us forever." And I couldn't
Amazing.
be happier about that.
So what are your skills that you employ as executive director? What are you doing on a daily basis for HunterSeven? What does that entail?
So that's a whole lot of phone calls and coordination for event support, for donor support, and then mutually beneficial collaborations as far as that goes.
Okay.
So when you look at Chelsea and Dr. Sherry Boucher, those are career nurses, and they're the main co-founders of HunterSeven, and it started from Chelsea where she was dating her husband and all of his buddies. They're both our Army veterans, Chelsea and her husband Kyle. And Kyle had mentioned that all of his buddies like were dead or dying. And Chelsea's like, "Oh, from combat?" And he said, "No." She goes like, "Oh, suicide?" He said, no. He's like, cancer. So Chelsea was getting her undergrad and went to one of her professors, Dr. Boucher, and said, hey, how do I get published as an undergrad? And everyone there was like, undergrads don't get published. And Chelsea's like, F you, it's happening now. So she teamed up with Dr. Boucher to get published, and then they ended up starting the HunterSeven Foundation to help veterans in their fight against cancer. And so that has grown. That was back in December of 2018. So coming up on 7 years now. It's been exponential growth, and it's really just the blood, sweat, and tears of Chelsea and Sherry of just making magic happen, wanting to help veterans. Sherry's a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel who was previously Army as well. We've got Keith Dow, who is our VP of Warrior Needs, who coordinates and orchestrates all the treatment and medicine that we end up like getting out to our sick veterans and service members. So there's only a handful of us. Like, we're a very, very small team, but the stuff, like me coming in, what feels like the 11th hour, the infrastructure was there. So now it's just me not to, run the business off the road.
Understood. And what was his title? VP of Warrior Needs? Is that the name of it?
That's VP of Warrior Needs. Like he used to be the director
a gangster title, man. That's awesome.
It's a gangster, and he's just a gangster dude. He lives out in California. He was prior Army as well, but he was the director of immediate needs. Well, the problem with that, especially in the cancer world, is like you can get treatment in the near term in the immediacy of what has to happen, but then you also have to build in sustained needs program. You have to build out support for the families. You need to try and build in some of the mental health skills that are going to help the service member / cancer patient deal with their cancer diagnosis, to help the families deal with their service members and loved ones' cancer diagnosis, to help the kids deal with that. So we realized that there's like 5 different sub areas of what was immediate needs. Well, okay, we really need to expand this. And Keith has done a hell of a job putting all that together.
Maybe that's something that we'll circle back to and talk some more about, but the Western medical system is fantastic at meeting immediate needs. Like, you got hit by a car, you immediately need to go to a hospital. Like, they got that shit figured out. But like, you got some chronic illnesses, you have depression, you have PTSD, you have moral injury. They're like, I don't really have great solutions for you on that front.
You're going to hit a button, and like I love talking about all this, like a very important disclaimer for a lot of the stuff. I will do my very best to identify what I believe is my opinion versus what we have found through HunterSeven. So for all the viewers and listeners out there, I will try and give, because again, it's just, I think more people need to be honest, about some of these things. So if they hear me trying to be apolitical or try and dance around a topic, it's only because I don't want to misrepresent any of our research or any of the numbers that are out there or any of the research that other folks are doing right now.
Sure, but we can say from this point forward, all opinions are those of Tim Pachasa alone. Pachasa?
Yeah, Pachasa. It's not a tough one.
Pachasa, I was off. All right, not representative of HunterSeven.
Sure.
And I always joke, like, I just released an episode with this guy, Dr. Charlie Powell, who's a Navy doctor, and he's an awesome dude, actually. You guys should get connected too. But I was like, we're both doctors, but none of this is medical advice. So none of this is the official HunterSeven Foundation position. But so we've got that going on. You have your own leadership consultancy. You are doing a PhD program right now that I cannot remember the actual title of it for the life of me. It's a bunch of businessy words. And you're a dad to 3 kids of very spread out ages. So what else are we missing actually from the complete picture of like who you are and what you got going?
I am simultaneously both a diehard Cleveland Browns fan and Kansas City Chiefs fan.
Okay.
It's overwhelmingly Browns because that's what I was brought up to be, because my father was born and raised in Cleveland, and a lot of my dad's side of the family is still back there. But then my family has lived in Kansas City since 1988, since I was in junior high. So I have the bookends of the fan bases and success in the NFL stuff. But yeah, that's really me. And then the only other part of that is a proud 25-year veteran of the United States Air Force. and I like to say United States Army. I wouldn't disrespect the soldiers to say that I was a soldier, but for 20 of my 25 years being assigned to Army posts and being stationed there and cutting my teeth with them, I'm probably more soldier than I am airman. Very proud to be an airman, but very proud of the soldier skills that I picked up along the way and getting to learn from those two different environments, whether it be the Air Force or Army.
Yeah, actually, this is a great segue. I wanted to hear a little bit more about what your actual job was. Because you were doing, it wasn't air traffic control, it was like a JTAC, like coordinating air assets. And granted, dude, I'm a civilian. My knowledge comes from fucking Black Hawk Down and Jocko podcast. So forgive everything that I get wrong. But explain to me a little bit more about what your actual job was when you were in the military. I'm sure there were a lot in leadership positions, but when you were kind of deployed in like a tactical level, what is it that you were doing?
Yeah, the straight up job was that my certification was JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller, and by and large, inside the United States Air Force, that's a qualification that is overwhelmingly owned by two different career fields, either combat control or TACP, Tactical Air Control Party. And so combat control is specifically on the special operations side of the house, and then TACP is both conventional Army and special operations side of the house. So, I had assignments with 82nd Airborne Division. I had assignment with 3rd Special Forces Group. So it just really depends on what you want to do with your career, what you want to progress. But yeah, our job was to call in airstrikes on the front lines for Army units. But a little bit more to your point, it's not just airstrikes. It's about integrating fires, like joint fires. So, trained to call in our artillery, whether that's mortars, 105s, 155s, whether calling, strikes from the AC-130 gunships or whatever that may be, with whatever armament they had on there, or guns, or excuse me, naval gunfire. So just really being the expert in the application of joint fires, and then the synergistic effect of those fires and the successful integration of those to make sure that we're not, lobbing rounds through where airplanes are flying, or dropping bombs on an airplane or helicopter that may be transiting the airspace. So putting all that together is a very unique and stressful job.
Is that what the term deconfliction means? I've heard people say that a lot, like deconflicting the airspace or the battle space. Is that what that refers to?
Yes, right. So there are two different terms that we end up using, and to the true professional, they are not synonymous, but to most people, they are synonymous. So if you want to deconflict air assets, for the most part, when it comes to, let's just call it fixed wing aircraft, we'll assign them blocks in thousands of feet. Hey, you fly at 10,000 feet. Hey, you got other guy, you fly at 12,000 feet. But minimum get 1,000 feet separation for that deconfliction, which is absolutely fair. But for us, there's a distinct line between deconflicting and integrating all of those assets. And so making sure that whatever level those air assets are flying, that we're doing, again, like the synergistic effect of the joint application of firepower in a three-dimensional battle space in complete accordance with the ground commander scheme of maneuver.
Got it.
And
Well, the reason I'm asking these questions to try to firm up my understanding is because I've heard you speak about how calling in an airstrike is almost the perfect example of communication. Like a microcosm of like the communication that we should strive for, almost because of the exactness of the terms and just the level of understanding that the two people have on either end of that radio. So I wanted to try to understand this a little bit better. Can you talk to me about that analogy? Why is calling in an airstrike like such a good example of effective communication for those of us who have never called in airstrikes?
Sure. No. Number one, righteous question. Thank you very much. An airstrike at the end of the day is nothing but a conversation between, at a bare minimum, two people, right? The JTAC, the guy on the ground,
the fucking bomb and the guy blowing up.
yeah. And so the thing was, through, and we'll just kind of round up. We'll call it 20 years of GWAT, the global war on terror, is that we dropped so many bombs and there's so much communication, so many airstrikes that when we do that, we're able to get that airstrike right 99% plus amount of the time, because we use distinct language. We knew the bare minimum amount of information that had to be passed in order to have a successful conversation. We could ask questions and seek clarification, and it wasn't about being confrontational or argumentative. And then we knew the pace, we knew the flow of conversation in a way that produced the max benefit of that conversation. And then we had certain little gotchas to make sure, we call them readbacks, to make sure that we could read back to each other the most pertinent information, to make sure that was absolutely captured correctly. And so through all that, I realized, and I phenomenal friend. I met him when he was a lieutenant. He's a retired colonel now, A-10 pilot. Guy by the name of Scott Campbell, goes by Soup. And his wife is a famous A-10, perhaps an even more famous A-10 pilot than him. She's famous for getting shot up over Baghdad in '03 and flying back to Kuwait on just like a rudder and pulley system inside the A-10. But Scott and I have been working together on really teasing out the concept of how to take leverage the understanding of calling in airstrikes and apply that thought process in our daily lives to make sure that we're communicating all the information that we need in order to be successful in whatever type of engagement we have with whomever that may be. If that's your kids, if that's your boyfriend, girlfriend, significant other, if that's your buddy, if that's your bowling league, right? If that's your golf foursome. Everything comes down to the successful articulation of all the things that we know make conversations successful.
Why I like talking to you, Chachi. I got there are a few people where I just have to pause and digest what they said before I continue the conversation. Because I'm thinking about I shared with you that we haven't been sleeping amazingly. My almost 2-year-old seems to be having like a lot of bad dreams for some reason. And so last night she just woke up and just sat up in bed. It's like midnight or 1 in the morning or whatever. And she didn't want to go back to sleep. And I started talking to her, and having a toddler is the most incredible thing ever, to learn how to communicate with humans, because we're all just fucking grown up toddlers with slightly better impulse control and a little bit better patience, but not much.
Much?
And especially in dealing with our clients, there's so much trauma that people pick up from childhood, and we can talk all about this as well. Most of the time somebody's PTSD isn't directly from their combat experiences, but it's because there's something in their childhood or something earlier that the combat experience triggered. So just the process of parenting a toddler is really teaching me a lot about communicating with my clients. And I love you guys who are listening. I'm not calling you children, but like kind of. But anyway, so she had this bad dream, and I was talking to her, and I was like, "You had a bad dream, huh?" And she like nods. And I was like, "Now are you scared to go back to sleep now?" And she goes, "I'm scared." And I was like, "It's okay. Daddy has bad dreams too." And like just talking to her, but it's so interesting just naming the emotions and naming the feelings that this child is having. And I think a lot of our issues come from not being able to actually name those things or express them. And then we can never feel understood because we don't even understand ourselves. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I got to teach my daughter how to call in airstrikes, and that's going to solve all of our problems.
No, I mean, but again, it sounds like you are intuitively doing that in figuring
Yeah.
out a way to make sure that you are talking about what you're actually trying to talk about, which is kind of my study of expectations. But it's really because, again, just because I've been studying that word for 13 years, but that doesn't mean that you understand expectations at the same level that I do. So I may be extremely specific in what I'm talking about, but you're hearing it in a very generalized sense until we have a formal conversation about how we level set what we're going to talk about, or how we understand these words, or how we value those words to whatever degree.
All right, let's just get into this now. I feel like this is the elephant in the room almost in talking to you. Can you lay out, are you capable actually of laying out briefly your
Yes.
theories around the word expectation? Like how much have you distilled that down? Can you give us an elevator pitch on the word expectation?
You bet.
Because there's a lot of questions I want to ask you, but just for the sake of our listeners who haven't listened to all of your shit on YouTube,
You bet.
talk to me about this word, this theory, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Everybody wants to have a good day. Another way of saying that is nobody wants to deal with assholes. So if we don't want to deal with assholes, we need to build more emotionally intelligent people. But then we need to figure out where emotions come from. And then every single emotion is based off of our expectations. We think something's going to happen, and then reality happens. And whatever gap this is, whatever delta is there, is some measure of an emotion. So the more that we can understand why we expect something to happen, why we expect it to happen to some level, we're better able to understand the emotion we tie to it. So that way, when there's a miss, either positively or negatively, we're better able to deconstruct what happened. We're better able to break it down and figure out what's at play. And at the end of the day, we become much more intelligent leaders, much more intelligent husbands or fathers, much more emotionally intelligent friends, things of that nature, because expectations drive every single fucking emotion.
Is it fair to sum this up? Is this accurate? The formula, the reality of the outcome minus the expectation of the outcome times your confidence level going into it. equals the emotional intensity of whatever comes out. Is that appropriate?
That is pretty appropriate. I don't know if I would say times the emotion,
Okay.
just the understanding of that emotion, but I do like that formula.
Okay.
Outcome minus expectation, equals delta, and then there's a weird quad chart that I build, is that on both I've got like a red slide and a green slide, because if something doesn't meet your expectation, it's going to be red. So it's based off of either a low level of certainty or high level of certainty that you thought that was going to happen, versus a low level of emotion that you tied to it, or a high level of emotion that you tied to it. And so inside that simple quad chart, you're able to figure out whether you're furious or whether you're meh. Or
Right.
even
And
even on the positive side, if you apply the same things on the good side, something exceeded your expectation, you're either cool or fuck yeah, And so it all plays itself out.
and this has, for the purposes of our podcast, trying to stick to the narrow scope of what I titled this thing. And it's funny. This podcast used to be called "The Way Broadly." If you're familiar with that Miyamoto Musashi quote, "When you know the way broadly, you see it in all things." So that title gave me a lot more leeway to have all kinds of different conversations. Rebranded as the Plant Medicine for PTSD podcast, kind of does what it says on the box, much better for SEO and marketing.
Sure.
But it means I got to try to keep this on track just a little bit. But this idea, it was really interesting when I heard you articulate it this way. It was one of those things that I think we all inherently understand, or inherently are aware of to some degree. I should say, we've inherently experienced this, but maybe we've not been aware of that this is what's going on. The mismatch between expectation and reality, basically driving our emotional response. It's something that is reflected in the healing process in so many different ways. We can talk about the medicine experience itself of having attachments, having expectations of how it's going to go. But then we talk a lot just about letting go of things in our program. We go through this process of shadow work to look at all these parts of ourselves. We try to see what parts I can let go, and then we try to establish boundaries so that other people don't try to put us back into that box that we just stepped outside of. And it really all comes down to expectation management of other people, but then also of ourselves. That one is harder for our clients to understand when I start talking about boundary setting between me and me. Because boundary setting between me and you makes sense. Like, hey, you crossed a line in the sand, I'm cutting you off. Like, it's not that simple, but it's easier to conceptualize.
Sure.
Harder to understand boundary setting with myself, what I will tolerate for myself, how I will communicate with myself, how I will think about myself. So let's go in that direction. Can you talk to me about the implications of this theory, or how you think about the word expectation as it relates to communicating with myself, or the expectations that we have for ourselves, both positive and negative, in terms of holding ourselves to a higher standard, but then perhaps judging ourselves because we think we should, quote unquote, be at some other level than we are now. And I don't know if I'm misappropriating your research to my aims here, but is what I'm sharing with you making sense so far?
It absolutely is making sense. And for someone who, throughout his 10 years in the military was working, me working on my own mental health, on what war, quote unquote, did to me, how I reacted to it, how my teammates did, what that meant to me in my personal life and my professional life, all of that stuff. And so the thing about expectations, and again, there's expectations in a finite sense, like I understand, but even expectations in a very generic sense of what we think is going to happen, because we do that every day. Every day we wake up, and there's a lot of us, like I check my weather app every morning when I get up to see whether, if I'm going to go hike the mountains here in Phoenix, Arizona, where I live, to see if it's going to be rainy or not, because I've got an expectation for weather. If I'm going to go somewhere, I pull up Google Maps or Waze, right, or Apple Maps, whatever, to look at traffic, because now I've got an expectation of traffic on how it's going to flow or where there's going to be hiccups, and then I plan accordingly. So what I've realized is that we have expectations of everything and everyone at all times. And I'm not saying we're trying to do it, but we just inherently do it as a psychological safety type thing, because at the end of the day, we just want no surprises. We're going to try and not get caught off guard. We don't want any type of surprises. So we try and connect the dots as much as possible, which is why I love Simon Sinek in his book, Start With Why. So understanding the why is important. It's absolutely rad. But then if you ask yourself, why is the why so important? Is because we build these expectations of everything and everyone. Now, we may not understand our environment that we're in enough to be very successful with this. And the example that I use is let's just say metaphorically, we're going to do something and we know that there's a point A and a point C. If we only know these 2 points and we're going to connect the dots, we're going to draw a straight line. We're not jumping to conclusions. We're making a logical conclusion. The human brain is hardwired to make sense out of the nonsensical. And there's dozens of books that explain that. So that is not my claim. That's everyone else in the world that has made that deduction. But again, if no one tells you that points B through Y are all over the place, number one, you can't connect them. And then two, you can't connect them in the right order. So we really need to understand our environment and allow that if we only see A and Z, there's probably more dots out there. And there's probably rational reasons why we don't know where they are or which order we should hit them in. So the more that we give ourselves grace to understanding that there's these invisible dots out there that we don't know about or that we can't connect, I think the better able we're able to to process our emotions. We're better able to interact with people inside our lives. And at the end of the day, give ourselves grace. Like, hey, the decision I came up with yesterday based off of what I knew at that time was the right decision. New information can come out today. New variables may be introduced today that makes yesterday's decision bad, but it wasn't at the time. It just became bad in the aggregate. And so for me, I think a little bit to your point is my study of expectations, and I kind of stole this mostly from Teddy Roosevelt, I believe it was, and I added to it. But a successful day to me looks like I did what I could with what I had at that time, regardless of the environment and whether I wanted to or not. And if I could roger up to those 5 things, I had a successful day. I may have had a hard fucking day. It may have been an excruciating day, but I dominated that day because I could roger up to those things. And that has saved me a lot of pain in my life by trying to control the controllables, not get swept away by the uncontrollables that I can't affect change with, and then see what happens.
I've repeated that line to so many of our clients in the last week. What you said to me of, I just try to control the controllables and let go of the let goables. I'm like, well, that's fucking everything that you need right there. That's like, you've written the contents of every self-help book that you could possibly imagine just right there. It's like, what is that thing? The emerald tablet in alchemy. It's like everything that you need to know can be written on the face of an emerald. That's like, you summed it up right there. I'm reading The Alchemist right now. Can you tell me where you're reading that? You used a term, you used the word grace there. Break that down for me a little bit more, especially because I know that you particularly use words with exactness. So what does grace mean to you? How does that fit into this?
Grace to me is, not always the perfect effect, not always the perfect effort even, but just the ability to be human. Right. And so the understanding of humanity means sometimes I have bad days. I am perfectly imperfect, and I do what I can. And I do those 5 things. And, that to me says a great day. I also have 5 daily challenges. I want to be the most emotionally intelligent person in the room. I want to be the most positive person in the room. I want to be the first person to admit I was wrong. I want to be the first person to say that I looked at something from someone else's perspective, and I want to be the first person to give benefit of the doubt. So like these are excruciating things. So like these are the things about how I give grace to others, and then also that also goes with the implication of I hope these are the same things that they're giving me. So I kind of impart these on others in hopes that the more I talk about it, people will give those kind of things to me as well.
We're too fucking nerdy about words. You just used the word hope. I know that you have kind of 4 levels of, I don't even know how you categorize it. You know what I'm talking about. So tell us about this, because I got somewhere that I'm going with it. But explain to us your 4 levels of certainty. Is that what they are?
Yeah, sure. Or like the levels of expectation, I guess, as far as that goes.
Okay.
So
yes, that's what I'm referring
to. For me, number one, synonyms do not exist. If 2 words meant the same thing, it'd be 1 fucking word. Right. So I
came up with a new term for this, by the way, in the shower today. I was thinking about it because I was like, what else could we call them? I was like, a word that's adjacent. I was like, paronym. So 2 words that mean almost the same thing, but not quite. Paranym, maybe putting it out there.
I
You feel
I
free to
I,
you
I
take that.
honestly
That's
like that.
yours.
As far as that, because
You keep that,
and
Chachi.
a
That's
lot
for you.
like you're alluding to earlier, even if I'm as purposeful as I can be with my words, that doesn't mean you're understanding the words to the same level, or you're applying them in the same way, or that you heard them even like with that specific thing, because we're not always attending to everything we end up hearing. But to me, for assumption, anticipation, and expectation are all kind of three ways of saying I think something's going to happen, based off of two things: based off of information available and past experience. So if we've got little information, little past experience, that's an assumption. If we've got variable or like mid-level information and or experience, then we can anticipate that something's going to happen. Or if we have high amounts of information, high amounts of past experience, then we could really have an expectation. So that I really like, because a lot of times, like we tell people to anticipate requirements, we don't tell them to expect requirements. So a lot of times, whether we're not trying to, we kind of give these weighted values to these words, and I'm trying to formalize it through my science and research. And then the fourth word that you brought up is hope. Hope to me, and this is I'm not set on this definition, and I really don't like it because it makes it sound like the worst word of
I'm
all four.
glad to hear that because I was going to spend the next 30 minutes telling you why it's the wrong word for this. So go
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, absolutely the wrong word. Because again, like if you've ever watched Shawshank Redemption, where he says, hope is a good thing, if not the best of things. So
Hmm.
if I hope that something's going to happen, it's the same thing as I'm going to anticipate. The thought or belief that an act or event will occur based on limited levels of information and or limited levels of past experience. And then I add separately for hope or evidence to the contrary. Because there's a lot of things, like we may have a lot of evidence that this isn't going to work. Like, I hope it's going to work. I've tried this 10 other
Right.
times before. I hope it's going to work this time because we have evidence to the contrary. So I feel that I'm righteous in that definition, but I'm completely unrighteous in the application, because I absolutely love hope and I don't want to diminish its power of positivity and all the amazing things it can bring to the universe.
Well, okay. I'm relieved to hear you explaining it this way. And yeah, I think we got to help you find a better word for hope. And we can chalk that up to the imprecision of the English language, because there's perhaps a difference between like a foolish hope or a naive hope versus like an inspired hope, perhaps, where it's grounded in a knowledge that this might not actually happen. And in fact, I'm even preparing for those cases, but I can still hope for it. So again, something I share with my clients all the time, especially as it relates to relationships with other people, is try to leave room to be pleasantly surprised, right? I think most people, most of the time, don't change. But all of us, all of you guys listening to this podcast, you're doing this because you want to get better, you want to change. So shouldn't we extend that same grace to somebody else in our life before we completely cut them off? And you just shared, like, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and hopefully they give that back to me. So even if we're in relation with somebody who has proven to us in the past, we have plenty of prior experience to the contrary, we can still hope that they're going to improve. So yeah, I I'm relieved because I thought that you were kind of castigating hope in a negative light, and I don't like to think about it that way. Um, the phrase "hope is not a course of action," but like it fucking costs you nothing to have it, right? Like why not? Why not still have hope?
You bet. You bet.
Last thing on the hope topic before I'll rest my case. You're familiar with the parable of the frog and the scorpion?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is another thing we share all the time. It's like when somebody has proven their nature to you time and time again, it's your fault if you let them continue to hurt you or if you let them to continue to disturb your peace. And again, that's where boundary setting comes in. So we teach people, like, you might have to love someone from afar, but that doesn't mean cut them out of your life forever, because I think there still should be the hope that they can change, that give them the grace, give them the benefit of the doubt. So I rest my case, Chachi. I leave it to you to find a better word for your PhD dissertation. Speaking of which, remind me, what is the goal of this? Like, why are you in this program? So you're getting your PhD in what exactly? And then like, what will that do for you or give you on the other side of that?
This is not PhD, but it is just a doctorate. as far as that goes.
Okay.
So to
Okay.
where
I'm sorry.
the kind of layman's definition from what I'm told, because I struggled to understand this myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
is that a doctorate. So like mine is actually a doctor of business and business administration with a
Okay.
concentration in organizational leadership.
That was it.
Whereas on the
Organization.
doctor side of things, you can just go as a studied expert in that field. The
Okay.
so every PhD is a doctor, but not every doctor is a PhD.
That's fair. I mean, I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I don't have a PhD, so I
Yeah,
should
right.
understand this, but my brain
Yeah,
still
yeah, yeah.
defaults
No,
to it.
and my whole goal with this is I want more emotionally intelligent people, but it really goes so much further than that. And only in the past like 4 to 6 weeks have the more that I go around teaching leadership, and the understanding is like, hey, we want emotionally intelligent leaders and people, but there's so much more because emotional intelligence doesn't encapsulate the understanding or the studies of personalities or theories and application of motivation or mindfulness and resiliency or communication or the concepts related to power, whether you've got legitimate power or reference power or reward power, right, or referent power, all that stuff. And so what I've been studying recently, and I don't think I'm still going to do my dissertation on expectations, but the thing that I'm really focusing on lately is not having an EQ for emotional intelligence, but I really want to do a lot of publishing on HQ, how we have a human quotient. And it's not about leadership, it's just about because like leadership, like being in a leadership position, being in a relationship, or being in like friend circles, it's all the same shit, and so
That's right.
I mean, it's all about how well we can connect with another human being towards a different goal. So manipulation is me being able to affect your behavior in an outcome that benefits me. Leadership is me being able to affect your behavior in a way that benefits the mission, the organization, all that stuff. Or in a relationship is me being able to affect your behavior that benefits our family, our relationship, our lifestyle. It's all the same shit. So whatever ship you want to tie to it, fucking great. But like the human
You use your
quotient,
fucking brain, dude.
I want to build out a human quotient so that we can understand humanity. Because again, not to slap anyone in the face with the great gains that we made in diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is red. I want fairness across the board, right? But at the same time, I'm the only me in the entire universe. You're the only you. You and I are each the smallest minority in the world. So if we can understand that for ourselves, and we can understand how each individual is perfectly and beautifully individualistic, then maybe we can see how difficult it is to align efforts and really engage and really connect with somebody else. So you need the foundational understanding of what makes us uniquely us and different and similar and all those things so that we can really engage with one another.
Why do you feel like that's necessary? Perhaps that's kind of self-evident, but like, why are you organizing so much of your effort around this right now?
I really just care about people, and that's it. And I'm ever since I retired from the military, I've become, and I did not have a very combat centric career. It was very administrative. Like I had deployed for the invasion of Iraq. I'd done some deployments prior to that, but none of my career success really was predicated on success on the battlefield. It was in the leadership realm and organizational realm where I found success, where I was able to successfully communicate with people. And before I'd studied this, I just happened to be born with some of the basic skills that led me that way. Are leaders born and made? It's absolutely both. Some are born with a better genetic predisposition to be better with some of those skill sets outside of others. Not that it can't be learned. Just some of us get a leg up in from for my career or evidence right now. I seem to have been born with that. I'm just able to quantify it a lot more. I've been able to study what has helped make me successful, ask questions, get input from other people about why they liked working for me or didn't like working for me, or what resonated, what didn't resonate, read all the leadership books, put all that together. And at the end of the day, it's just people trying to get through life, as much as possible. And everyone's fucked up and everyone's awesome simultaneously at all times.
I love the idea of this human quotient because yeah, it's not like we're trying to even so all right, I'm in this healing space, right? The healing space itself can become so toxic and co-opted because people get addicted to healing. It's like I'm on this path, I'm doing the plant medicine, I'm doing all these things. And I'll never forget, we worked with one woman, a Canadian veteran, who shared how her entire life everybody told her how strong she was. Like she was the strong one in her family. She went on to have this really great career in intelligence and do all these things. She was always told how strong she was. And she was like, I'm so fucking tired of being strong and like having to be strong all the time. And when she started working with us, she was reading self-help books nonstop because she just constantly had to be improving. And now like she and her husband just actually took a step back from being mentors in our program to go travel Southeast Asia because they're like, we've been doing nothing but healing for the last 2 years and it's amazing. And now we want to go be retired veterans with money and grown kids so we can go do whatever we want. And I was like, hell yeah, go do that. So I don't even really know what to do with this idea of the human quotient. I'm gonna have to think about this for a while, but I think that that's really all that we're all trying to do is just kind of be more human in like the fullness of the experience of what that means, which is becoming increasingly important as there's more AI and fucking doomsday stuff coming. Peter Thiel talking about the Antichrist. Like, what the fuck is going on in the world, man? So yeah, we need more humans.
You bet.
And I know the fullness of the human experience. So you shared that you're into the Kabbalah. So we're taking a hard left on this podcast. How does that understanding, how does your practice, how does your knowledge there fit into this picture?
Yeah, so it's very rudimentary right now, So now it's just understanding the basic concepts of the universe, and so
Nothing major, just starting with the fundamentals of the universe. We'll go from there.
Well, there are those douchebags who say like, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual.
Yeah,
I'm that douchebag.
yeah.
like that
I was
is
about to say like you're describing me, bro.
that is 100% me. And again, like I have nothing against religion at all. In fact, my wife just in the recent years and really this year has really found her Christianity, which has been really great. So watching her accept God and get in that is absolutely phenomenal. And not that I'm not on that path, but I've met too many people throughout the world who are just as positive about their religion, is in that their God and all those things. And I absolutely believe them because they're not dumb and they're great people. So for me, I think it just makes sense to align myself with what I believe to be the higher power, the one, the all, as far as that goes. And then, my core concept is, not just be the positive person in the room because there's toxic positivity. And I've been that, and I have a great capacity to be that because I'll always put not always rose colored glasses, but because I give so much benefit of the doubt and I give so much opportunity for people to do the right thing. There's a lot of times where I don't put the requisite emphasis on, hey, there's some serious shit going on right now that has to be taken care of right now. We don't have time to be nice about it. Like we really need to fix that. So mine just comes down to, the energy that you put out into the universe is the energy that is coming back to you. And that has proven itself correct time and time again. And then, watching all the different stuff and, learning the hermetic principles and everything that's going to happen and how we deal with change, how we deal with resistance is like, hey, like, am I really going backwards or am I being pulled backwards so that I can be then slingshot forward? Is in all that stuff. So that's kind of where I'm rooting myself right now.
What kind of stuff is on your reading list as you're exploring this?
So right now it is this guy on YouTube, and here's how old I am by putting on my glasses.
Right.
This guy, where is it? And he's just phenomenal. And so I download his stuff, and it's so much fun. Jose Moralejo. Moralejo.
Okay.
And he's talking about like manifestation hacks about how you're manifesting, but you're probably not manifesting appropriately, or you're not leveraging the right things that you would need to do. In his, let's see here, his channel, at Jose Moralejo. He's got just under 15,000 subscribers. He's got 97 videos, but he just did one 1 hour ago. Like, you'll never outwork a weak frequency. The light bulb moment that
I
bends your universe. The 8 spiritual
like
laws
that.
of conscious creation he did 4 weeks ago. That has been my jam, and I'm probably on my 4th iteration of listening to that right now, and it's
Okay.
been phenomenal.
What was that most recent one? You'll never outwork. What was it?
You'll never
I know,
outwork
glasses
a
back on.
weak
I'm sorry.
frequency.
A weak frequency. Okay, interesting. So in our inside of our program, we have a very very structured, and I need to do just like a podcast breaking this down one time because I've never really laid it out, but very structured week by week kind of a curriculum. Week one, we kind of look at intention setting. So, like, where is this all going? Where are we steering the ship towards? And of course, that'll still be blurry because it's on the horizon, but where are we going with this? Then we look at habits, and then after that, we look at affirmations. The reason that we start here is because I kind of joke you will never habit track your way out of feeling like a worthless piece of shit if that's how you identify yourself at the end of the day. I don't care if you meditate 7 times a week and go to the gym 7 times a week. If your self definition is I am a failure, I'm an asshole, I'm a bad person, I'll never improve, doesn't really matter what we're doing on paper. So we need that tangible stuff that is necessary but not sufficient to get where we want to go. So it sounds exactly in line with what this guy's preaching.
And it's funny. I'm going to say this next piece with an important disclaimer that my next statement is not an indictment on the Veterans Affairs Clinic on 32nd Street here in Phoenix, because I love that clinic. These people are absolutely great. I did, however, go in and see a counselor one time, and he was the biggest piece of shit I've ever met. He started like he wanted to start a fight at the very very beginning,
Fuck, dude.
and and I said, hey, I'm either here for a physical ailment or a mental health visit. And he's like, well, this is a mental health visit. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm here trying to get tested for ADHD. I work with some nurses, like, hey, not for nothing, but have you been tested? Because you're showing some signs, and you may want to explore this a little bit. Not saying to get me on drugs, but like, just understand yourself a little bit better.
Be aware of
So
it, for sure.
I told him that, and the guy goes like, I'm not giving you drugs today. I'm like, I'm not asking for drugs. I'm asking. And so we went along this lines, and then he goes, how do you feel about yourself? I'm like, I'm awesome. And he goes, really? I'm like, yeah, I'm awesome.
Yeah.
He's like, well, that's a bit arrogant, don't you think? I'm like, absolutely not.
Fuck
He's
you,
like,
dude.
how? I'm like, how is that not arrogant? I'm like, it has nothing to do with anybody else. I personally believe I'm awesome. I'm tragically flawed simultaneously. I'm not more awesome than anybody else. That's not how I heard it. I'm like, why are you hearing it that way? Like,
Yeah.
I've got a positive self-efficacy, which we should celebrate, and you're giving me the 3rd degree about it, you dick. Sorry. So yeah, but like to that point, like, yeah, like at the end of the day, like if you tell yourself you're a worthless piece of shit, you're a worthless piece of shit. But like when you go to bed at night, you're like, I had a rough day. I had a bad day. Like, today's day kicked me square in the balls. But I left my day walking tall. I kiss my kids good bed. I kiss my wife good bed. And I try and be a good dude every single day. Fuck yeah, I'm awesome. Right? I'm gonna wake up tomorrow trying to be just as awesome.
Feel like I need to revisit based on what you just said. And also, yeah, fuck that guy. That's terrible.
Yeah,
Did you ever get a diagnosis from somebody else?
I did not. And again, like
Okay.
I'm now so gun shy
I see
about
it.
this. Like I don't want to go drug shopping. I don't want to go doctor shop. Like, I
Nah.
do want to be the best version of me. And if I have some of these traits that either I can get psychology, I can work with a therapist with, great. If they want to put me on some type of drug, whether it's, what is it, Ritalin, or fuck, put me on Viagra. Like whatever makes me the best version of myself. I want to know, and then I'll make the decision for me. I'm not a big fan of taking pills to fix me just because
No.
I'm kind of anti big medicine now.
I don't know that Viagra would help you focus anymore on your work that needs to get done, bro.
Got some interesting work.
We might have, an even wider spread on the age gap of your kids in the future.
Fair.
But so, all right, I want to revisit something that we talked about earlier, which is that kind of that formula, that idea of expectation minus, or reality of situation minus expectation equals, like, that delta kind of equaling the emotional intensity. And I'm wondering if maybe there's like a flaw here or something. So I'll share a story. This dude, Toby, that we worked with, he shared with me one time towards the end of our program how he was left to go drive to the store, got halfway to the grocery store, realized he forgot his wallet at home, turned around, like no factor, turned around, got his wallet, went back to the store. He told me like 6 months ago that would have caused like a hole in the wall, probably a week worth of binge drinking, and his dogs would be scared of him for a week because he'd be, yelling and screaming. So in both situations, there's the expectation that my wallet's in my pocket. There's the reality that my wallet's not, but there's a very different emotional response because of his internal state. So I feel like maybe there's actually a piece of this formula that we're missing out on. What
No, so
what do you think about
again,
that?
like level of certainty. So like mine is like I was talking about that quad chart. So if it's
Yeah.
a negative thing, is like how significant is that miss, right? So what is the level of emotion that we tied to the outcome, and how big or small was that miss? So he probably realized that him not having his wallet in his pocket is not a big miss. It's just a small
Okay,
miss.
so so it's not just the discrepancy between expectation and reality, but it's almost how impactful that is, how significant that
Yep.
is, how tightly I was holding on to that
Yep.
expectation, perhaps. Okay. Okay. All right. I'm back on board with your theory. Thought I found a hole in it. My fault. I should have known you were right, Chachi. I'm sorry,
No.
man. That's
No, but
on
and
me.
again,
That I own
like
that one.
I've been super blessed in the past 2 days having some great conversations about expectations, because like it only helps me get better. But that quad chart, and again, so much easier to show, like really helps
Yeah.
define that, because it's the way you think something's going to happen, and then reality happens, and then it's how much certainty and emotion did you tie to that outcome. And then when you're able to put that together, and like for me in the football game on Sunday, the Browns just lost to the New England Patriots. Okay, fine. They're a really good team this year, and there was no way that I thought the Browns were going to win. So when the Browns lost, I'm not pissed. But normally, what happens in a Cleveland Browns game is that we're good enough to keep it close. Like half of our losses this year have been like one score games, and then we Browns ourselves in some shitty fashion and just throw the game away in the
It
final two
sounds
minutes.
sounds a lot like my dad being a Mets fan. That's just like
Yeah,
setting
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
up for
right. Just
heartbreak.
the lovable
Yeah,
losers who can
yeah,
snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And so for me, like every Sunday is an exercise in my expectations and my emotional intelligence. And again, the thing that bothers me the most is this is the shit that I study. But like as it gets closer, the Browns keep it close. We keep it close, and we get to the very end, and then something happens where it just falls apart. And now I'm super pissed. The end state is the same end state that I thought it would be. We ended up losing, but now all of a sudden I'm torqued. I knew that, like before the game started, I knew we were going to lose. But then, in a lot of these cases, we keep it close, and we screw up along the way, or it could be a winnable game that we end up throwing away. And now at the end of the game, I'm super pissed. But it was my expectation all along, right? Because I've got a level of certainty and emotion tied to the outcome as it transitions through the game. And to me, and like one of my common phrases for this is, any deviation to an expectation causes frustration.
yeah. 100%. All right, I've got a bunch of other things, man, that I want to talk about, and it's probably my failing as a podcast host for not finding any clean transitions to them. So I'm just gonna kind of circle back to some rapid fire shit after this because I have been I'm not going to say I've been struggling with this idea, but I've been trying to wrap my mind around something for a while. And I want you in real time to help me sort my fucking brain out, man. So, for a long time, I've kind of subscribed to more Buddhist, Hindu kind of beliefs about things like letting go of attachments, letting go of desires. Because, like you just said, any deviation from that expectation causes frustration. That's what the Buddha says. Attachment is the root of all suffering. So, I've tried my best to let go of some of that. But then I also ran into this issue where it's like, well, how do I then exert or influence my will on the world? Because I have desires. I have things I would like to work out a certain way. This really fucked me up, man, for a while. Like when I was 24, 25 years old, I was living in Delaware, working at this PT clinic. I fucking hated Delaware so much. I don't know if you've ever been there. You shouldn't go. It's a terrible fucking place. It's god
Horrible
awful.
people, all of them.
It's just everyone there, just terrible place. No, for real, it was great. Like my clinic, very nice people, but I really didn't like it there. I really did not like it, and I would make myself crazy thinking like, well, is my dissatisfaction here only a result of my attachment to the idea that my life should be different? Because I love mountains, I hate the beach. I lived on the fucking beach. I live on the fucking beach now in Tulum, by the way. So this is a problem with me, Chachi. So I drove myself fucking crazy thinking like, should I just give this up and just accept that this is where I am and make peace with that? Or do I change my external circumstances to be more in line with what I want? And I still don't actually know how you navigate this. And I shared with you the other day, I'm reading this book on Carl Jung and Gnosticism. And Jung specifically says that the Western man goes wrong when he tries to apply these Buddhist and Hindu beliefs, because he's specifically saying like you're basically giving up your will to power, as Nietzsche would put it, in order to just accept things. And my Hindu beliefs are basically when we die, we merge back to Godhead, like the one merging back into its source. That's kind of the idea. Again, Jung is saying that's not the point. Like you should actually maintain your individuation while connecting to that universal unconscious. You can tell that I still don't know what I fully fucking believe here. Are you pulling a thread out of any of this? Help me make sense of what I'm even trying to articulate, Chachi. Are you following this at all right now?
I am, but only insofar as my experiences with plant medicine, and my other friends who experience plant medicine, and then my study on the Hermetic principles and the Kabbalah and all that stuff, to where we are all part, we are infinite parts of an overarching being. And that, my personal belief is that when we die, we go back to the universe and then come rejoin the rest of ourselves as one infinite type of thing, right? And so
I'm on the same page.
I honestly believe that we're here on Earth to experience this for ourselves, to make us better, so that when we go somewhere else, we'll have a greater understanding of life writ large. Because like I can't fathom how big space is. The fact that our galaxy is so damn big, and the fact that there are more galaxies in our universe than there are total grains of sand on all the beaches in the world, makes my head spin. So with that type of thing, like I believe in this all that happens. But again, as far as Jung, and we're talking about id, ego, super ego type stuff, and like I subscribe to a lot of. I was in high school, I'm a big psychoanalyst fan. So whether it was Freud, Jung, all that stuff. Not a big Skinner guy, but Maslow, I liked as far as like humanist type stuff. But I honestly believe that we're here for our own experiences, and that when we die, we go back to the one, and we go back to having this infinite part of ourselves, where we all join together and experience the universe, for life, for all eternity.
I think you're right on that. Maybe my answer lies in what you shared of controlling the controllables instead of trying to let go of the controllables too. Like you could do that. You could renounce all of that, but you don't have to. Because like I could have moved out of Delaware, and I did. Spoiler alert, I'm in Mexico now. Okay.
Well, it's weird. One of the questions that I learned in an executive transition program before I got out of the Air Force was one of the best questions that, and I ask this of anybody I meet now who's struggling where they are in life. They don't know what they want to do, or they feel that their job or career is misaligned with what they really want. The best question that I can ask anybody, and this isn't even mine, is what would you do in life if money were no object and you knew you could not fail? And I love that question, and people can come up with all kinds of different things, and there's some people who don't want to do shit, and that's fine. There's like, you don't need, like, going back to office space, like, hey, you don't need a job to do that. You can just not do shit. But like if you want to give back to society, if you want to help others, if there's a measure of benevolence to what you want to do, if there's a measure of greed that you just want to make millions so you can have all the things, like, I'm not judging that's rad too. And Lord knows I want millions, and I want all the toys and experiences, and I'm working toward that. But I'm building in philanthropy to that as well, because I want to be successful, but I want to give back. So yeah, shit, who knows? We're all just trying to find our way.
Yeah, dude. All right, I like that a lot. I'm gonna sit with this. I'm gonna work with this because, dude, it still trips me up, man. Just wondering like how much should I apply myself to get the things that I want? Because like, should I just give up wanting those things? Because like, desire is just a contract to be dissatisfied with yourself in one way.
Or like where does passion meet greed? Like I'm chasing something because I'm passionate about it, or am I doing that because I'm greedy? How do we understand these two things? Like, I'm not sure.
I don't know. The philanthropy piece should definitely be there. And like honestly, the reason we even talked in the first place, like I would love to get to a point where I have some more money to give away. We're not there quite yet, but when I do, we're making regular donations to Hunter Seven, man.
Oh, that's
Because
awesome.
for genuinely, dude, there's a fucking million and one mental health nonprofits. Everybody wants to throw money at ibogaine. Nobody wants to throw money at somebody's fucking cancer treatments. So like that's what we need to actually be worrying about. I think. So I like that very much. All right, man. Let's stick on this path of you trying to sort my fucking life out for me, Chachi. So I've got one more very personal one, and
Bring
then
it.
we'll go back to expounding on this for the sake of the audience. So you are a father. You have three. Are all three of your kids boys?
Yes.
Okay, and they're what? Like there's pretty widespread.
Yeah.
Remind me the ages.
20, 11, and 5.
Awesome. All right, so I think a lot about my my traditional gender role as the male, as the leader of my family, leader of my wife, and leader of my kid. I think about leadership a lot in the context of my family, and mostly I think about my shortcomings in that department. So, how do you think about leadership as it relates specifically to your family? How do you try to implement these things that we talked about? How do you see your job as the leader of your family? And I think maybe raising boys is a little bit different. Like I have a daughter, but in general, how do you approach your role as a leader specifically within your home?
You know, uh, it kind of defaults to traditional gender roles, as far as that goes. And perhaps in my case, that's largely predicated on my military service and the fact that I'm a heterosexual. So, I joined the military. Allie stayed home with the kids when I went off and fought wars. And then I'd come home and try not to get in her chili too much the way that she ran the household before I went on my next deployment and to do more war, as far as that goes. So I think a lot of my environment or my understanding of gender roles again is predicated on 20 years of global war on terror. But now that I'm retired, right ish, still school, job, nonprofit, dad, husband, all that stuff is, I will honestly say that I'm attacking these things from a a position of gratitude. So my role, and so I had some war buddies just happened to be in Phoenix. Two dudes who don't live here were in town. So another guy who lives local, they came over. So the four of us just had kind of a bro night, watching football, shooting the shit, and really having a good time. And I cooked dinner for everyone while my wife took the one kid to piano practice, then picked up the 5-year-olds. They went out. Had to go to Walmart, had to get some more Halloween costume stuff, had to go get pumpkins. So she was gone like the whole time doing that while I entertained and cooked for the dudes, had a few, drinks, all that stuff. Well, this morning when she went to take the kids to school, by the time she'd come back, I'd cleaned up the kitchen, I'd done the dishes, I'd organized and done all that stuff, which I probably wouldn't have done in the past. I would have gotten to it eventually, but she's a massage therapist and personal trainer, so she works out of our home. So if I don't do it in that moment, I know it's up to her to do it. So
Yeah.
this goes back to the movie the Breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn, and she's like, I want you to do the dishes, and Vince's like, why would I want to do the dishes? You know, so like I don't want to do the dishes. I want to help my wife, and more so than helping her, I want to say thank you for all that she does for our family. So it's these little things that I now do for her as a thank you for that. I'm on the road a lot with a nonprofit or teaching leadership, and so because I work from home when I'm not on the road, I see all the shit that she has to do by herself when I'm gone. And so there's a whole lot of like guilt in that, and there's a whole lot of I got to put food on the table, I got to make enough money, and right now we're in a position where she has to work because I took a pay cut to work at Hunter Seven because I believe so much in their mission. So ideally, I want to make enough money where she doesn't have to work. That if we want to pull the kids out of school, she can homeschool the kids because
Right.
society's just going to hell in a handbasket. And you're like, and so I just want my kids away from all that shit, but that's not where we are right now. So that's constant stress on me. There's the constant dad guilt from being gone. If I'm doing all these other things, my wife's not getting my time, or my children aren't getting my time. And if I'm out making the money, and Steve Harvey has a great quote about this. I've heard him overlay and all that stuff, or like people say, like, dad. dads are never 100% because I'm giving 100% to my job, then the family suffers. Or if I'm getting 100% to my family, then I'm not bringing in the money and doing all that. And that's just a level of fuckery that I can't comprehend on a daily basis. And it kicks me like for my mental health. I'm going to be honest, like uh, it's a struggle, and I'm a positive dude, and like life is just kicking me in the
Most
junk.
positive guy in the room.
Yeah, right. I try to be, but like I suffer on a daily basis because it's never enough, and I can't be everything to everyone at all times. So I have to say no, which is tough because like philosophically, I'm a find the yes guy. Like there's an answer to be found, and I can do it. But then I do that in my personal life at the expense of the ones I love the most, or the things that I want to help better me, or my schoolwork, or my time with my kids, or the time with my wife. And I'm going on a bit of a just ramble here, but again, it's tough.
It's so much better just hearing you explain all that. Because I'm like, man, fucking Tim, he's got his shit figured out. He knows what's up. And then you just described every single thing that I feel on a daily basis. So that's beautiful. We're just
And
both fucked up.
and there was a little over about a month and a half ago. My wife and I went on like a couple's vacation to Palm Springs with some war buddies of mine. Phenomenal dudes, and it was one of those things where like I was really struggling, and so individually, and I didn't plan it, but the times that I like there were four other dudes, and when I talked to those four other dudes who were all friends of mine, who were all almost overwhelmingly all former bosses of mine actually, and just had this, and it just kind of came up very organically that I was having a tough time, or like life's tough right now, and every single one was like, dude, I totally hear you. Like dudes don't talk about it, we don't bring it up, we don't announce that, but as I put out my vulnerability with all that stuff, almost without fail, those dudes are like either hey, I'm going through it right now, or hey, I've been there and I know exactly what you're going through, and this is what helped me, or have you thought of that. So to have those four guys in my life who were really there for me in my moment of need, and they had no idea that that was my moment of need, was really profound.
Man, there's something extremely profound there that I think we're starting to come around to societally, of talking about this stuff, dude to dude, but there's still a lot to be done, and we so I run a men's call inside of our community every Monday night, and I'm incapable of taking anything seriously, so it's called the men's rectangle because men's circles tend to be fucking lame. And the space like in our community platform is called the sacred dude space because again, just everything has to be a joke. And frankly, maybe that's my fucking defense mechanism against being extra vulnerable, is I have to turn everything into a joke. But
Don't
I
we
would
all?
rather joke about it. So
You bet.
yeah, last night was extremely powerful for all the people that were on there, and we started doing this almost because like we changed like our membership structure, so we started charging people like monthly to be a part of it, and I was like, I guess we have to do more shit if I'm asking people to start paying me more money. Like I gotta do something for it, right? So that's why we started doing this every week. And after a few weeks, like we have massive attendance, and it's like the highlight of everybody's week that's there, and everybody comes fucking pissed off or sad about something and leaves feeling better. And I come downstairs and tell Cordy about it, and I tell her like half because I'm like, secret dude stuff, I can't tell you. But yeah, man, it's so important. So I'm glad that you have that with your friends. I feel like I just experienced that in real time. So anybody watching this, you just got to witness that weight lifting off of me as you just described everything. So thank you for that, Chachi. Appreciate you, man.
No, and again, like I want to be that example for others out there. And again, like almost without fail, the dudes that I've sacked up and been vulnerable with, they have come through and said, "Hey, brother, I've been there. I get it. I'm there now. Like, dude, I wish you would have told me sooner. Like, you don't have to hold on to that
Dude,
problem, that guilt, that shame, that like whatever you're handling alone. Like, you don't have to do." And like, dudes say it all the time, but we never fucking do it. Like, we're like, hey, call me morning, noon, or night. We're never gonna fucking call ever.
no, no. I think that's why it's easy to say that too, because we know that most people won't take us up on it. But yeah, just the sharing is so important. So at our last Operation Flow State Jiu Jitsu retreat, which you should fucking come to, we had a guy at the end of the week share in one of our sharing circles something that happened like 27 years ago in Saudi Arabia. That he was an Air Force veteran. Literally nobody in his entire life outside of like his chain of command when this critical incident occurred. Like nobody in his life knew that this thing happened. And this dude carried this guilt of this decision that he made for 27 years. And we were the first people that he ever shared it with. And that was 6 months ago, so he just went through our whole program. Like this dude's life is radically different in so many dimensions, and it all started because he felt safe enough to share this thing that happened. And then everybody fucking cried, and we all, dog piled on him for a big old group hug, and it was beautiful. So yeah, I'm glad that we're doing this. I think I shared this off air. We're literally putting on a T-shirt with Chad from Mental Joe Apparel. I don't know if you know him at all. Oh, dude, you guys should get connected. He's in Arizona actually as well.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, we're putting one of our mottos, heal out loud so that others don't have to suffer in silence, which is another Tobyism. This dude Toby from our program. I just repeat what other people fucking say. So I now have a Chachiism. Control the controllables, let go of the let goables. Maybe we'll make a T-shirt. I can give you 10% of the proceeds. Happy to do that, buddy.
Happy to put that in as long as it goes to HunterSeven.
All right, man. A couple other questions. I actually have like so many, but I need to be sensitive of time because I got something coming up. So maybe I'll pull out one. I'm looking down because I was literally listening to that video you sent me while I did the dishes this morning while my wife was in bed with our toddler. You talked about a boss that you used to have, a gentleman, I think Paul Ford, maybe, if I captured his name correctly, who said to you that professionals thrive on discipline. And I think maybe you internalized that, you repeated that for a while until you realized that's actually not quite right. So talk to me about what's wrong with that, because discipline is something I think about a lot. And again, I think about my shortcomings as it relates to personal discipline. So help me wrap my head around this.
Yeah, that wasn't a phrase he used, but having worked for him, that was the mindset that I adopted, having worked for him.
Okay.
Because he was very disciplined, as far as that goes, and we all knew, and so in a generic sense, yes, people thrive on discipline, and that's fair. What I didn't realize, and it took me another like 12, 13 years past that, no, 8 or 9 years past that, was to realize that I had an ignorant understanding of what was happening, because like Paul, and this is going to sound bad. Paul was at the Ranger Battalion and Ranger Regiment for years and years. So he was very strict, very regimented. But again, it wasn't discipline, it was expectations. Because his expectations were clear. If we stacked things in stacked all the cases of our food, the MREs, the meals ready to eat, and again, we stacked them when we put the war supply back there. If all those boxes weren't all facing the same way and right side up, he'd make us redo it. And but to him, it wasn't about just looking clean. It was about attention to detail. And again, this goes to the whole decision fatigue thing, right? If everything's laid out and we know everything, we don't need to waste our time looking or guessing or making decisions if we organize things appropriately.
Right.
So working for him, again, it wasn't his discipline. It was his expectations that if I knew my left limit was here and my right limit was here, I had everything here. I don't care about this 330 or 300 degrees that I missed on the outside. I knew that this 30 to 60 degrees was fucking mine. And I could dominate the dominatables, as far as that goes. And so I made that happen. And he was really great. And so I took that forward, but I evolved my understanding of that concept, because discipline, if I do something just because Paul Ford said to do it, I'm not disciplined. I'm obedient. Right. So when we start reconciling the understanding of, again, these words that we just throw out there and they sound cutesy and great, right? But again, the discipline has to be to me, obedience is doing something that somebody else values, especially when it's difficult, is obedience. Discipline is doing something that I value, even when it's difficult. So there's a whole value. Just because he tells me to do something and I do it, I'm not disciplined. I'm obedient, right? Pat me on the head, give me a little biscuit, and yay, good job, Tim.
So the question then becomes, well, how do we implement self-discipline? Because anybody who's trying to improve themselves requires this, but also inherent in that is resistance. You're familiar with Stephen Pressfield, of course,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So how do we overcome that for ourselves? How do we implement self-discipline? Like that's great to strive for, and maybe it comes back to the expectation management within oneself. So how do I do that?
It's funny. Like I'm actually like on my Audible right now. I think Stephen Pressfield is the book I have up right now,
Hell yeah.
because like he's and it's just that I think his the book is do the work.
Yeah.
But like his whole thing is great. He's like he goes, it's not you that's not doing it. There's something inside you that's not doing it, but you're fine. Like give yourself the grace to know that that's not you. That's just a certain aspect of that. So for me, especially in retirement, where I'm running an organization, there's really no one breathing down my neck every single day, and having the self discipline to do what needs to be done, even when it's difficult, it becomes a value system of me. Because what gets measured gets done, but what gets valued gets measured. You know,
Mm.
so if I value it enough to measure it, to really take stock of it, then I'm on my way of doing that. Like I've got a Pomodoro timer. I'm not sure if you've ever used these,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? But I will put this down, especially when things are bad. Like I'll set like for 20 minutes, I'm gonna do a thing I
I
fucking hate to do, but for 20 minutes, I'm gonna grind it out. And then after that, I'll give myself some grace. I'll go grab something to drink. I'll go knock out some squats in my home gym or whatever, and then I'll come back and I will do the next thing that I hate, which is amazing. But I also learned there's a Harvard Business Review article called "Manage Your Energy and Not Your Time." And the cool part about that is for almost nearly all of my military career, I couldn't control that environment. So I didn't even think about it. But I know where there are times in my day where I'm super productive. And then forgive the phrase, there's times in my day that I call the retard hours. And that's normally from like 1 p.m. to about 2:30, where it's after lunch and I'm tired and I kind of want to do whatever. So here's what I've learned to do is all the shit that I hate doing, I do first thing in the morning when I'm super motivated, because I know that has the greatest chance of getting done when I do it there. And then during my retard hours, when I don't want to do anything, that's where I do all the shit I like to do. And now I'm twice as productive because I've learned to manage my energy and not my time. And it's been phenomenal.
feel like we're squarely on that time frame right now. Maybe that's why this is going so well.
You bet.
I I really you could tell that hit me because I've heard like what gets measured gets managed, or what gets measured gets done. Like, all right, well, that's cool. I'll start measuring something for a week and then I stop filling out my little tracker for myself. So yeah, what gets valued gets measured. So I feel like now I'm giving myself homework after this is to sit down and assess like what are those actual values, and then maybe what values need to be changed to be more in line with what like the desired outcome for myself. Like I want to be the guy who wants to do these things, but I don't know if I'm actually that guy quite yet.
You
And
know,
all this is go ahead.
yeah, no, I've struggled with that, in my life, where like if I were to show you my calendar, my Google calendar, where I block out 2 hours every morning for admin stuff, just for me to knock out all that stuff. And I learned this when I was in the Air Force, because meetings pop up on your calendar, and when you're the senior enlisted guy for like an Air Force base, everyone can get a shot at your calendar. That if I didn't block out admin time for me to do my stuff, it would disappear. So I'm much more purposeful in blocking out, number one, my administrative time to do the things that I need to do. I'm much more proactive in blocking out family time. And there was a cool part when I was in Jersey where my wife was getting her massage certification, but she needed to be at massage school like Mondays and Wednesdays from like 5 to 8:30 at night. Well, on my job, like there's no way I could leave before 5 o'clock when people were leaving at like anywhere between 6 and 7. So I had to deal with my boss to where Mondays and Wednesdays I'd be home by 5 o'clock. I'd take care of our two young boys. I'd make them dinner, put all that stuff together. But then Tuesday, Thursday, I'd stay till 8 or 9 o'clock because I would manage my energy and not my time. And that was the give and take. So the unit didn't list out on focus or time or investment from me. I just shifted where I was able to put that time together.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that we do actually. It's something we teach in our program is creating our ideal week and blocking off those times and then structuring everything else around those non-negotiables. So like Monday mornings we have our relationship meeting followed by our salsa lesson that we do every week, and that's like our like little date morning. We've
Nice.
got different meetings and stuff blocked out along the way. So I like that. Why were you in New Jersey? What were you doing there?
That was my first. I got selected for a competitive job to be the command chief of the 305th Air Mobility Wing down at Joint Base McGuire-Dix Lakehurst. So that was from
Oh,
January of 16 to June of 17, and
okay.
in southern Jersey, and loved it. Was not the Jersey I was expecting,
Dude.
especially having just moved from Hawaii to go there.
Yeah, you were probably so bummed about that.
I
So
was.
I'm from New Jersey. I don't know if we talked about
Yep,
this,
yep.
but everyone has this horrible impression of New Jersey because they fly into Newark Airport and then drive to New York City. So you see the worst part of the state.
Yeah.
And I always joke like, good man, stay out of my fucking state. We don't want you here. Don't come.
Southern Jersey was glorious. That Air Force base was
It's
in the
beautiful.
sticks, like farmland
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
everywhere. And it was, we could scoot over to Tom's River or go over to the Jersey Shore or hit up Philadelphia even in 30, 45 minutes. I loved my time in Jersey.
All right, last thing I want to hit on, and hopefully I saved enough time for this. So we've kind of danced around this topic of psychedelics, but we haven't talked about your direct experience. And I'm not even looking for the whole story. I know that takes a lot longer than what we've got. But share with us briefly, why were you called onto that path? So like, what prompted that for you? What's the psychedelic origin story here?
Yeah, it's very interesting because like I had never done prior to going to Mexico and doing ibogaine and 5-MeO DMT. I'd never done psychedelics at all. As a matter of fact, as kind of a teenager in the '90s, graduating high school mid '90s, and you saw grunge was there, and there was kind of a throwback to the 1960s and all that stuff, and so I felt like pot was really big, and some of the people were doing
Hmm.
LSD, and I never wanted to do that, and I didn't want to expand my mind, man, and I didn't want to explore the universe, and I didn't want to do any of that shit. And then I joined the military where I couldn't do any of that, so
Yeah.
didn't necessarily matter. And then one of my buddies from the TACP career field is one of the co-founders of Black Rifle Coffee, a guy by the name of Jared Taylor. And so Jared had gone down there, and I was at the time, I had been retired from the military, and I was working for him as his kind of exec, taking care of his personal business outside of Black Rifle. And so he had an opportunity to go down there, and it really caught me off guard. I didn't know he was going to do it. I think it was a little bit sudden. So he went down there, and I watched him come back a changed person. It was unreal. And he's like, "Tim, I am sending you there." I'm like, okay. Okay, and so I had no idea. I couldn't spell 5-MeO DMT, or ibogaine or any of that stuff. And I went down there and I came back a week later, a different version of myself. And and so since then I've been able to do 5-MeO DMT a few more times. I do psilocybin approximately quarterly that I've used just an oil change for my brain, to kind of help that out as a heroic dose, and it goes from anywhere between 5 to 7 grams that I take to do it. But it's all about me exploring truth, understanding the universe, and using some natural things to help my brain to get through this crazy thing called life and deal with all the tragedy and trauma and awesomeness that we experience on a day-to-day basis, and how to help us reconcile that for ourselves.
Were there any specific downloads, if you want to call it that, any specific things that came out of those psychedelic experiences that pertain to your research and your theories and our use of language, like everything that we just kind of talked about? Were you ever just hanging out with God on 5-MeO DMT and just got like a sudden insight or something clicked into place related to all this?
Yeah, yeah, I will honestly say I know some people out there who went there, who did those drugs, who had an unrealistic expectation for what it was going to do for them, that they were going to be
For sure.
completely free and clear, or they would have no more trauma, or they wouldn't just randomly cry in the middle of a day, or if they see one of their war buddies, they would hug them until they started shaking. They thought that would go away. So I'm very thankful that based on my study and research of expectations, when I went to Mexico, I had no expectations for that outcome. I went there, I tried to be as blank of a slate as possible. I wanted to do some of the mental prep work ahead of time, and when they're talking about, hey, what do you want to do to talk to the medicine? What do you want that to do? My whole thing is I just want to experience truth. If that truth helps me get through whatever I may be going through, great. But I want the medicine to show me what it needs to show me, regardless of what I think it might show me, because there's no way that I could possibly know the inner workings of my soul, my DNA, generational trauma, lived trauma, and any of that stuff. So coming out of there, I was very thankful that I thought I was very well equipped to not have expectations. I did not set myself up for disappointment in any way, and I came out of there with just a whole heart and a new lease on life.
Beautiful, man. So the understanding of expectations set you up for success going into it. What do you attribute success on the backside to? The integration piece. 'Cause everyone wants to talk about the experience itself. That's a small fraction of what actually happens, especially when actual healing occurs. So how has these ideas of expectations, of leadership, of communication, how did that influence your integration process after getting those lessons, after seeing those things?
I would say the post Mexico me has learned moderation, which was never my thing. That if I was going to do it, I was going to go balls deep. And if one is good, 200 is at the absolute best, And
Yeah.
and like if I was going to drink, I was going to get shit faced. Like I wasn't a casual drinker. And not that it was ever a problem. I don't have a DUI. I've never smacked my wife or like I zero evidence to show that I was a problem drinker, other than I love to drink and I would drink to excess, but it was a whole lot of fun and I never get hangovers. So like I had little blowback from any of my actions, and my wife was hoping that I would learn some measure of restraint, I guess. Um, but
Never
but
happened.
but moving forward, I've learned moderation. So that has
Mm.
been nice to be a moderate version of myself, where I can have a casual drink, or just for instance, a few days ago on Sunday, watching football, where I'd sit back and I have throughout a day have between a 6 pack and a 12 pack of beer, which over 12, 14 hours of watching football is fine, which is not a lot. And I'm not drunk. I just enjoy drinking. But now I don't need to do that. Not that I'm anti drinking, because I will still drink from time to time very casually, or I will get drunk from time to time. And I really appreciate doing that. But I've learned a level of moderation, that I wouldn't have thought that I needed, or that I wouldn't have thought that I would have taken away from that. But very thankful that that's
Yeah,
what the
that's
medicine gave me.
what do you attribute that to? Because yeah, that's not what I would think of either, just on its face.
Yeah. A grand universal design.
Fair enough. I again, not that you had a drinking problem, but kind of the way that we often look at stuff like this is like people don't have a drinking problem. They have a drinking solution to an anxiety problem, to a self-worth problem, to a depression problem, what have you. And so I don't know. I wonder for you, pure speculation. I've known you for a total of 2 hours, Tim. But what is it that the drinking to excess gave to you? Was it almost an ability to enjoy the situation more, an ability to let go of something, trying to fill some hole that was there, and maybe that thing kind of got solved by the medicine? I don't know, and I don't
Yeah.
even know that we need to dig into it. That's just where my
Well,
brain goes.
well, like for me, I think a big part of it was just a latent insecurity on me, and I don't know where that
Mm,
insecurity comes from, but just being insecure in who I was as a person. Joined the military, and the culture at the time was I want to get into a special warfare career field, and we did that, and we trained hard, and we had a good time, but then we partied hard too. So that was it.
yeah,
So if I could prove myself at my job, or I can prove myself drinking, then I would be one of the guys, and I didn't have to
there
be.
you
I,
go.
I could be secure in myself by doing that. So then that just became part of my mo. So
There
now,
you go.
in my old age, and they say that youth is wasted on the young. God knows
Yeah,
that's true. But now in my old age, my values have adjusted. So my self worth, my value, my security isn't built on my tactical prowess, my physical prowess, my drinking prowess. It's how much time I could spend with my wife and kids, and then maybe if there's time left over, friends and family.
dude, I you hit the nail on the fucking head with that. One of the things we always do for clients in our program throughout the course is giving them specific tailored journaling prompts based on everything that I know about them. And almost always that shift is one of the things I try to bring about with how I phrase my questions, shifting where they derive their self worth from and their self efficacy from. And basically getting them to prove to themselves it comes from all of these good and righteous places, not from all of these destructive places or shameful places.
You
So
bet.
that's awesome, man. All right, buddy. What questions have I failed to ask you that I should have? Or what other things would you like to talk about bearing in mind I've got like 30 minutes tops, so maybe there's just like a part two of this that needs to happen. But what are some other things that you think people ought to understand around these topics, or just messages that you would like to get out there to veterans, to first responders who are maybe struggling with some of the same stuff that you used to, or just trying to be better on this path?
Yeah, I would honestly say just based off of, shit, you and I could talk about anything for hours, and I think that it would be a worthwhile conversation. But having been connected through the operational successes of Hunter Seven, and then knowing what you're doing down there for folks in Mexico, and again, like whether you're a veteran or not, number one, take care of your mental health. Is absolutely key. I would ask people to have uh, to hold space, right? To understand that there are some natural treatments that don't have to be pharmacy based, that don't have to be big pharma driven, because there's no money in a cure. There's only money in treatment, and everyone's saying that now, and it's absolutely rad. So if they're willing to suspend some of their judgment and some of the bad press that plant medicine or psychedelics have gotten over the years, I would like to highlight that it can be extremely rewarding. I was one of the naysayers. I was one of the shit talkers. I didn't want to expand my mind. And now every day for me is a measure of how can I expand my mind to help my fellow human, to help my wife and kids, and all that stuff together. And then on the veteran side of things, if you served for any amount of time, you experienced some toxins, and toxins that most people are not exposed to. And this isn't the government's fault. It's not the military service's fault, as much as it's not their fault when you get shot when you join the army and you're on the front lines. That's a natural thing that's going to happen. No one's mad like, oh, I blame the army, I got shot. That's not the army's fault. It's not the army's fault that this cancer is popping up either, right? Because it's the cost of doing business for what we do. It isn't their fault that it happened, but it is their responsibility to help fix. And so if you are a veteran out there, if you served, please get screened. I just want people to go to hunter7.org, fill out a support request. We're not a big organization, so we're kind of very segmented. That, like, right now, if you served during the global war on terror, like '01 to 19, and you're between the ages of like 40 and 60, we want to screen you. And because we have horror story after horror story, and this isn't anyone's fault, of people presenting with symptoms. They go in and see the doctor, that the doctors dismiss because they're like, well, it couldn't be this because that only happens when you're 60 or 70, blah, blah, blah. Well, based off all the toxic exposures, based off all the stressors that service members and veterans are exposed to, we're seeing those cancers in veterans like 20, 30 years sooner, that no one's accounting for. And again, it isn't anyone's fault. We're having to relook, because all of civilian medicine is predicated on civilian environment, civilian facts and assumptions that aren't accounted for with the military environment. And so there's kind of two different scales that we really need to look at. I'm not saying I have the answers. Again, this is just Tim Pachasa, but some of the information that we're getting back, someone call it anecdotal, fine, okay, fine. But let's get a big study out there. Let's get a lot of big powers behind, and let's figure out if there are civilian numbers that we need to focus on, and then service member numbers that we need to focus on, because this shit that's happening in 60s and 70s is happening in late 30s and 40s and 50s in veterans and service members. And so we need to have a discussion. And if you're currently serving, you don't get screened for these cancers, because again, it's predicated on civilian models where this isn't happening, but we haven't evolved our knowledge of how susceptible service members and veterans are to these toxins and getting all these cancers. And Chelsea and Sherry have done a great job of really lobbying for the equities of veteran health, whether it's cancer or not, and trying to speak to people inside this new administration about what we can do to really bring this issue to the forefront.
And this goes for veterans too, who are not only deployed to combat zones, but even just living on bases, yep. Right? Involves a degree of toxic exposure. So, we see a lot of people who are like, oh, I don't qualify for PTSD. I was never blown up. And I'm like, that's nonsense.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, don't feel like you don't qualify for this because you never, threw a battery in a burn pit. Like this still applies to you as well.
Yeah,
So thanks for highlighting that, Tim.
PTSD is not a military specific thing that happens.
No.
There could be cases that it could be the larger population gets it based off of what they see and experience. Fine. But even I don't like saying that because everyone's experienced hardships. Everyone has their own race to run, and everyone has their own hurdles that they have to overcome. And it's weird, like in a military sense, I hear people talk about like leadership's a lot like family. Like, well, that's fucked up, because like inside organizations, like we want to have a family environment. Bullshit, you do, because if you stop paying me, we're no longer family, right? Not to mention,
100%.
People come from shitty families, and just by you saying that, they now fucking hate you. Like, realize that family isn't always a pleasant experience for people.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. All right, man. Let's wrap this up. This was excellent. I would very much like to do a round two after I've had time to digest all the wisdom that you just dropped on me. 'Cause, dude, I got notes upon notes of everything that I've heard you talk about before, and we hit on a fraction of it today. So thank you very much for your time, buddy. I really appreciate it. So people should check out HunterSeven. Where else could they go? Do you have a personal Instagram you direct people to? Is there anything for your leadership consultancy that you want to highlight, or just leave it at HunterSeven?
Yeah, you bet. If you want, so for HunterSeven, go to hunter7.org, just HunterSeven.org. That's very easy. You can email, info@hunter7.org. That's very easy. If you want to look at my leadership stuff, it's Cape Lead, CAPELEAD. I'm on Spotify. I'm on iTunes. I'm on YouTube. Instagram, you can find me, Chachi, Pachasa, CHACHI, PACHASA. You can find me on LinkedIn. And again, I'm happy to talk leadership. I'm even more happy to talk HunterSeven. We just need to help people. And if you're willing to be on that journey with me, I'd love to talk to anyone and everyone.
Brilliant, man. Thank you so much for your time, buddy. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate yours. Thank you for doing this stuff.
All right, you guys, that's it for this episode. As I mentioned, all of the relevant links are going to be down in the episode description. Please check out HunterSeven Foundation, even if you do nothing other than follow them on Instagram or get on their email list. That is supporting the mission. If you can donate, that's even better. Check out some of Chachi's work. I'll also put a link here to a video that he sent me that I listened to in preparation to this. It's just like a 45-minute talk about the word expectations. And that was what I listened to come prepared to this podcast with all of my questions for Tim. So if you want more of this extremely nerdy bullshit, go check that out. And thank you very much for listening.